After months and months of speculation, fear, and anxiety, it's finally time for the Roval. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove, the NASCAR show where multiple times a week we talk about all the biggest news and notes around America's favorite motorsport, and today we have ourselves an exciting episode in store. Ladies and gentlemen, the week is finally here. It's Charlotte Roval week, the third race of the playoffs, the final race of round one, and all that's not even the scariest part. This track is completely unknown. While Charlotte Motor Speedway is very familiar, very recognizable by everyone, this specific configuration is brand new to the NASCAR racing circuit. So we could honestly see anything. It's never a good sign when several of the top Cup Series drivers are nervous about something. And going into this weekend at the Roval, that's pretty much the case. In this video, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about what I'm expecting from this weekend and maybe what you guys should be expecting too. But to start with, I'm going to give some background information on the Charlotte Roval race. Like I said, this is the first time the Cup Series or the Xfinity Series has ever raced here. For as long as I can remember, and I've been watching NASCAR for 13, 14 years now, for as long as I've been around, people have always been asking NASCAR, fans I mean, have been asking NASCAR to add more road courses to the schedule. You know, every year we go to Watkins Glen and we go to Sonoma for the Cup Series, and those are both typically some of the most fun, so most well-received and most enjoyable races. NASCAR obviously is known for being an oval racing series. Stock cars going around in circles, that's the stereotype, and NASCAR typically lives up to that. 34 out of 36 races are on some sort of oval-shaped track. Some varying greatly in size and configuration and shape, but basically they're all ovals. But for years now, Cup Series fans have been hungry for more road courses. You know, the Xfinity and Truck Series, they go to like Road America, Mid-Ohio, Canadian Tire, they go to a few road courses during their schedules. Meanwhile, the Cup Series still only goes to 2. And for years now, fans have been asking for NASCAR to add more to the Cup Series schedule. We've talked about the Cup Series schedule on this show some this year. A lot of people have some gripes about it and think it should change going forward, but most people understand that with contracts the way they are with SMI and ISC, very few schedule changes could really take place until 2021. That's why every year, the last decade or so, we've basically been going to the same tracks with only maybe a few dates swapping here and there, but we really haven't added or taken away very many dates for very many tracks. It's been pretty consistent. So with all that in mind, NASCAR was kind of in a box as to what they could do to add a new road course because they couldn't break contracts, they didn't want to add another race to the schedule, that just wasn't realistic. So NASCAR did something that I think is honestly really smart in creating the Roval for Charlotte in their second date. A lot of these big oval tracks have road course configurations within them. I mean, look at Daytona, they do like the 24-hour Rolex race in the winter every year, and they set up a road course that goes through Daytona International Speedway's infield. I know Indianapolis has an infield road course too. There's several oval tracks. A lot of the big oval tracks do have some sort of road course configuration that they set up for other series that aren't NASCAR. This is a super smart decision if you ask me, but for Charlotte Motor Speedway to turn their second race of the season into a road course, I'm sure NASCAR probably played a big part in encouraging, or I'm sure they played a part in establishing this event. Will the Roval continue into the future? We'll kind of have to see how this weekend goes. I know NASCAR is probably hoping to add more road courses possibly around the country to the schedule in the next few years, but that's a conversation for a later date. But anyway, that's a little backstory into why the Roval is here this year. How it ended up being the final race of the first round, I don't know how that happened, but there's a lot of variables at play now. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about what we can possibly expect from the actual race this weekend. All we really have to go off of is a handful of tests that were run over the summer and earlier this season. Several of the drivers came down to run some tire tests, just general tests, I guess, around the track. The track itself has even had its configuration changed a little bit since it was originally announced. The tire that a lot of teams were testing here over the course of the season isn't even the exact same tire they're going to be running at the race this weekend, so there's still a lot of unknowns. As if there needed to be more unknowns. This track is basically a giant question mark. So with very little prior information to go off of, it's very difficult to make educated predictions. But I'm gonna try. Y'all know I'm hit or miss on a lot of these predictions anyway, so we'll see how this goes. Everyone is curious to know how this race is going to actually play out. Is it gonna be a total wreck fest? Totally chaotic, like a lot of people seem to think it will, a lot of the drivers think it will too? Or will the race kind of turn out to be sort of anticlimactic? A lot of drivers will take things really easy, especially with it being a playoff cutoff race. Maybe, not a lot happens, a lot of single file. Maybe that's worst case. I think most people think it's going to be either extremely insane with tons of wrecks and tons of chaos and nobody knows what's going on, or the exact opposite. It's going to be extremely anticlimactic and not a lot's going to happen because everybody's too afraid to make a move. I don't think anyone thinks it's going to be in the middle somewhere. I think everyone thinks it's going to be one or the other, and I tend to agree. Most of the drivers seem to think that it's going to be a total crash fest. I mean, we heard Martin Truex Jr. after Richmond kind of sarcastically excited for this race. We've heard other drivers say that they only expect like 8 cars running at the end of it. So of course, when the drivers are saying things like that, I'm going to tend to believe them. I think this race is going to lean more towards the chaotic, wait, which way is it? The chaotic side of things. I don't expect a lot of big crashes. I'll be surprised if there's a lot of big crashes. You know, this isn't like a Talladega type wild card race where one little spin could cause a 20 car pileup. But with as many corners, as many changes in elevations and kind of odd like changes in banking and everything that this track has, I would not be surprised to see a good 15 to 20 little single car spins or wipeouts. Could be a lot of yellow flags Sunday. This race could turn into a 4 or 5 hour slugfest, who knows? Which will be fun for some people. It'll definitely be entertaining, I'm not gonna lie. I think NASCAR will need to be careful in this case because if it's too much of a wreck fest, if it does lean too far towards the chaotic side of the spectrum, then there's a good chance that maybe the Roval does not get to come back next year. And I think most people hope that we are able to keep this road course on the schedule because like I said at the top of the show, most fans want more road courses. So hopefully the drivers do their homework and can handle this thing on Sunday. So now I'm going to move on to specific predictions. Who's going to win this race? Who's this track going to favor? What kind of driver is going to succeed here? Is this a place that's going to cater more to the veterans or to the young guns? You know, I've heard from some people seem to think that this racetrack is going to kind of serve as like an equalizer. Like everyone's basically a rookie. Doesn't matter if you have 20 years experience or 2 years of experience. Nobody's raced on this track before, so everyone's kind of leveled to zero. That's the argument I've heard, and that logically makes a lot of sense, but I'm a little skeptical. I mentioned how the only track time we've seen at this track came during tire tests throughout the last few months. And those tests were not without their fair share of action. We had a handful of wrecks across those tests. Every single driver in the Cup Series basically had some amount of track time, but the one thing I noticed is that the young drivers were the ones that were wrecking a lot more. Over the course of those tests, we had, like I said, 5 or 6 kind of notable wrecks that were kind of surprising for a test. And every single driver involved in those wrecks was like under the age of 25. The Killer Bees wrecked. William Byron lost his brakes. Bubba Wallace slammed the wall in turn 1. Alex Bowman spun out at one point. Ryan Blaney hit the wall. I also remember specifically Eric Jones spinning out. All of those drivers I just named are, young drivers, part of the youth movement. And 3 of them I just named are in the playoffs right now. Jimmy Johnson never wrecked. Martin Truex Jr. never wrecked. Kyle Busch never wrecked. Kevin Harvick didn't wreck. I'm noticing a trend here, or at least something that, we can't ignore. Logically, it makes sense for this track to kind of be an equalizer. Nobody's been on this track before. Jimmy Johnson, 7-time champion, has never raced this configuration before, so logically it makes sense that he would have no more advantage than William Byron, who's a rookie. But from what I've seen in those tests, I think this race is going to dramatically favor the veteran drivers. Drivers with at least 5-6 years of experience. I think Joey Logano level of experience and above are going to do really well. That's not to say that Chase Elliott won't be good. He won at Watkins Glen earlier this year. That's a road course, so he could still be really good. But I tend to think that we're going to see a lot of Martin Truex Jr. up front. I think we'll see guys like Clint Bowyer, Kurt Busch, maybe battle for the lead a little bit as well, because they're veterans who've had road course success. Obviously, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick will be in the hunt as well. I'd keep an eye on Jimmy Johnson, because they continue to have been running a little bit better the last few weeks. They've had top 10 race cars in each of the first 2 races in these playoffs, so maybe something could go well. Jimmy Johnson could wheel that thing to a good finish. This is a track that seems to be favoring veterans. I don't think we're going to have a first-time winner this weekend, if that makes any sense. I expect it to be a guy who's already won this year, or at least has won recently. If we look at the point standings really quick, we can kind of see how maybe this relates. Coming into the round of 16, my first 4 drivers that I picked to be eliminated were mostly young guns. Alex Bowman, Austin Dillon, Ryan Blaney. I threw Almirola in there. Obviously, they're all currently in the top 12, mainly thanks to that crazy Las Vegas race. But still, part of the reason I thought these young guys would be eliminated early, specifically like Blaney or Austin Dillon or Alex Bowman, is because of the Roval. And this is a track that, based on the tests, I figured young drivers would really struggle at. Bowman and Blaney both wrecked here during those tests, so I'm, feeling a little confident in those picks. You see Blaney right there on the cut line, as well as Alex Bowman's pretty close. Austin Dillon doesn't have that big of a cushion. Those 3 drivers are going to have a lot of pressure during this race on Sunday. If it was just another oval, I'd think maybe they have a good shot of moving on. But since, it is a road course that has kind of bit the young guns in the butt so far, I'm skeptical. Obviously, time will tell to see if I get any of those predictions right, but let's hope for the best, or at least I'll hope for the best. It doesn't look good for them when you have Clint Bowyer and Jimmy Johnson right behind you. I'm pretty confident Clint Bowyer is going to have a decent run at the Roval and manage to move on to the next round, so that means one of those guys, Blaney, Bowman, is going to get knocked out. And you can't forget about Eric Jones and Denny Hamlin. I know Jones is a young driver who also was one of the guys who spun out during the test, so I don't know how well he's going to do this weekend, but Denny Hamlin's had some road course success in his career, so keep an eye out on that 11 car. He's got absolutely no momentum to his credit right right now. He's had nothing but bad fortune, misfortune in these playoffs, but you never know. He can catch lightning in a bottle and make something happen. My prediction for the Bank of America Roval 400 at Charlotte this weekend, I'm picking Brad Keselowski to win the race. Nobody has run better than him these last 4 weeks. He's also a pretty decent road racer. He's a veteran driver with experience, and he's already locked into the next round, so I think he's just going to kind of go for it. No pressure. Almost every driver in the field who's not like in the top 4 in points is a little stressed about this race. I think Brad Keselowski will sit back, play it cool. I think he wins the race. Like I said earlier, I think Harvick will be a competitor. Kyle Busch probably. Maybe Truex is up there. The only quote-unquote young driver who I think has a chance of winning this weekend is Chase Elliott, mainly due to his success at Watkins Glen earlier this season. The driver I'm going to be keeping the closest eye on is Jimmy Johnson, and maybe Clint Bowyer. They're both right there on the bubble. Jimmy Johnson, though, especially. I picked him moving on past this round. He's run pretty well these first 2 races, had some bad luck at Las Vegas, but he's right there, has a chance to make it into the next round, and I hope he does. I think he will. And Clint Bowyer I should mention as well, because a lot of people expect Clint Bowyer to be a round of 8, maybe even a championship 4 contender. That's how he's been most of the season. He has not had very good race cars these first 2 races, had some bad luck as well at Las Vegas that hurt his finish even worse. That's why he's on the outside looking in right now. He's a good road course racer. Expect him to run well. If he does not run well this weekend at the Roval, even if he advances, I'm not feeling good about him in the next round because that team's not where they need to be, and I'm a little surprised by it. Whew, a lot of stuff to talk about in this video. I know there's a lot of people out there going to be giving their thoughts and predictions and expectations about the Roval race. Hopefully you guys enjoyed hearing what I had to say, and I want to know what you guys think in the comments, how you think this weekend's race is going to go, because honestly, there's no wrong answers. Thank you guys for watching today's episode of Out of the Groove. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, continue the conversation over there. Thank you, of course, to our Patreon supporters right there. If you want to support me directly and help support the show, you can check out that top link down in the description. I really appreciate you guys at least taking the time to check that out. If you missed any of my episodes from this last weekend, I encourage you to go check those out as well. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll try to have another episode up in just a couple days. There's some more silly season rumors going around with Daniel Suarez, and some rumors are going around RCR I want to talk about, so I'll try to get that up in a couple of days. But if I don't, if I don't have that up in time, I hope you guys enjoy the Roval. I will see you guys then. It should be an exciting race. It could be possibly one of the most highly anticipated races in modern NASCAR history. There's a lot that could go right, as well as a lot that could go wrong. So if you're even just a casual NASCAR fan who occasionally watches these videos or occasionally watches the sport, I really hope you tune in Sunday afternoon, because it could be one for the ages, and I hope it is. So I'll see you guys then. Have a good weekend, everybody. Talk to you later.